Dear Starseeds of Earth, you've already jumped timelines without realizing it, and the discomfort you're feeling right now is proof that you've successfully completed a soul retrieval that others said would take lifetimes to achieve. The tension between wanting freedom and craving approval that's tearing you apart today isn't a problem to solve. It's the exact frequency signature needed to unlock DNA codes that have been dormant in humanity for 26,000 years, and you're the first generation capable of activating them. I am Seraphine, emissary of the Galactic Federation of Light. And what you're experiencing today with Mercury's challenging dance with Saturn isn't just an astrological transit. It's a coordinated cosmic initiation designed to break you free from an approval matrix that's been controlling human consciousness since Atlantis fell. But here's what's really happening. While you think you're struggling with self-doubt and communication breakdowns, you're actually in the final stages of the most profound spiritual graduation ceremony in human history. You know that feeling when you desperately want to break free from everything that limits you, yet simultaneously crave deep connection and validation from others? That push-pull sensation that's making you feel like you're being torn in two different directions? That's not confusion or weakness. That's your multi-dimensional DNA coming online, learning to hold paradox as power rather than seeing it as a problem. And this specific sensation is the doorway to a kind of sovereignty that transcends anything humanity has experienced before. 3 weeks ago, something shifted in your field that set today's events in motion, though you might not have consciously noticed it at the time. You started receiving what we call the independence codes through your dream state, and these codes have been slowly rewiring your entire energetic system, preparing you for today's activation. The creative impulses that seem to come from nowhere, the sudden need to express yourself without caring about the outcome, the strange urge to destroy everything comfortably and rebuild from scratch. These aren't random feelings. Let me tell you what actually happened to you in the past that prepared you for this exact moment. You've been through something that cracked your heart wide open, something that should have broken you but instead transformed you into a different kind of being entirely. That painful ending you experienced, and you know exactly which one I'm talking about, wasn't just a personal tragedy. It was a carefully orchestrated initiation designed to break you free from the third-dimensional matrix of conditional love and approval-seeking behavior that keeps most humans trapped. The lotus blooming from the mud isn't just a pretty metaphor for your journey. It's literally what's happening in your cellular structure right now. Every painful experience you've transmuted into wisdom. Every moment you chose love when you could have chosen bitterness. Every time you softened when the world tried to make you hard. All of these choices have been building a new crystalline structure in your DNA that's activated by today's specific cosmic configuration between Mercury and Saturn. But something else has been happening that I haven't revealed yet. Something that changes everything about how you understand your current struggle. While you've been wrestling with feelings of not being good enough, of needing approval, of wanting to fit in while simultaneously wanting to break free, your higher self has been orchestrating a complete timeline convergence. All the parallel versions of you across different dimensions are merging into one unified field, and that's why you feel like you're too much and not enough at the same time. You're not the same person who woke up this morning, and I mean that literally. Every hour that passes today, with Mercury creating this friction with Saturn, another layer of your false self is being dissolved. The self-discipline that feels like it's breaking down. That's not discipline. That was programming. Real discipline, soul discipline, is about devotion to your authentic expression, and that's what's emerging now, through what feels like chaos, but is actually divine order reorganizing your entire consciousness structure. I see you trying to maintain relationships that require you to be smaller than you are, and I see the pain it's causing as you realize these connections can't survive your expansion. This isn't failure, this is graduation. Every relationship in your life right now is being tested not for its longevity, but for its truth. Can it hold your real frequency? Can it celebrate your sovereignty? The ones that can't aren't meant to follow you where you're going. And that's not loss. That's liberation from contracts that were keeping you tethered to outdated versions of yourself. Here's what's actually happening when you feel that desperate need for approval, while simultaneously rejecting any form of compromise. You're experiencing what we call a sovereignty paradox, and it's supposed to feel impossible to resolve, because the resolution doesn't come from choosing one side or the other. The resolution comes from expanding your consciousness to a level where both can exist simultaneously without conflict. where you can be completely free and completely connected, where you can be absolutely yourself and absolutely loved for it. Remember 5 years ago, when you thought you knew who you were, what you wanted, where you were going? That version of you was operating from a completely different dimensional reality. The awakening you've been through, whether this is your first or your 44th, has literally shifted you into a parallel universe where the rules are different, where creation works differently, where love means something entirely different than what you were taught, and your struggle today is your consciousness trying to operate by the old rules in a new game. You turned pain into medicine, darkness into light, trauma into transformation, and in doing so, you didn't just heal yourself. You created a morphogenetic field that makes it easier for every other soul to do the same. This is why you can't be selfish with your healing, why you feel compelled to share your transformation even when you're not sure how. You're not just healing for yourself, you're healing ancestral patterns, collective wounds, and dimensional fractures that have existed since the original wound of separation from Source. The creative impulses flooding through you right now that seem to have no direction or structure, these aren't meant to follow the old paradigm of creation, where you need a plan, a purpose, a profitable outcome. You're receiving what we call quantum creative downloads, where the entire creation exists in potential and only crystallizes into form when you stop trying to control it. This is why everything feels urgent but unclear, powerful but directionless. You're learning to create like the universe creates, from pure potential rather than predetermined patterns. If this message hits your spirit, hype this video so more starseeds like you can find it, because what you're going through today isn't meant to be experienced in isolation, even though it might feel like you're the only one wrestling with these paradoxes, the only one feeling torn between freedom and belonging, the only one whose entire reality seems to be shifting faster than you can integrate it. Something happened in the collective consciousness 3 days ago that specifically targeted awakened souls like you, a massive download of what we call the freedom codes. These aren't just concepts or ideas, they're actual energetic frequencies that rewire your nervous system to operate from sovereignty rather than survival. The physical symptoms you might be experiencing, the exhaustion mixed with restless energy, the appetite changes, the sleep disruptions, these are your body's way of integrating frequencies that human bodies have never had to integrate before. Let me tell you about the shadow work you've been doing, without even realizing it. Every part of yourself you once rejected, every trait you tried to hide, every emotion you labeled as negative, you've been secretly befriending these aspects of yourself, integrating them into your wholeness. This is why you feel so different, why you can hold space for paradoxes now, why you can feel multiple emotions simultaneously without needing to choose just one. You've become multidimensional in your emotional capacity, and that's a sign of mastery, not confusion. That voice in your head that used to constantly push you, telling you that you needed to achieve more, be more, do more by a certain age or timeline, notice how it's gone quiet. That wasn't your voice. That was the collective programming of the Matrix, and the fact that it's silent now means you've successfully disconnected from the collective unconscious that keeps most of humanity running on autopilot. The stillness you're feeling, even though it might be uncomfortable, is actually the sound of your own soul finally being heard without interference. You've been documenting this journey in ways you don't even realize. Every choice you make, every pattern you break, every moment you choose authenticity over approval, is being recorded in the Akashic records as a template for human evolution. Future generations will access these templates through their DNA, which is why your personal transformation work is actually planetary service. You're not just healing yourself, you're literally rewriting the human blueprint for what's possible when a soul chooses sovereignty over safety. The relationship you've developed with yourself over these past months is something that needs to be studied, because you've done something that most humans think is impossible. You've fallen in love with yourself, not from ego but from soul recognition. You've forgiven yourself for things you thought were unforgivable. You've embraced parts of yourself you thought were unlovable, and in doing so you've created an internal sanctuary that no external circumstances can destroy. This is true sovereignty, and it's what today's cosmic configuration is trying to amplify. But here's what's really happening beneath the surface of these astrological aspects. The friction between Mercury and Saturn is creating openings in the matrix of human consciousness, And every moment you choose to stay present with the discomfort instead of numbing it, or spiritually bypassing it, you're helping to hold these portals open for others. Your willingness to feel the full spectrum of this transformation, even when it's uncomfortable, is literally helping to dissolve the control structures that have kept humanity in limitation consciousness for millennia. You know those moments where you feel like you're vibrating at a completely different frequency than everyone around you, where you feel like you're speaking a different language even when using the same words? That's because you are. Your consciousness has shifted to what we call fifth-dimensional communication, where energy and frequency matter more than words. This is why communication feels so challenging today. You're trying to translate multi-dimensional concepts through a third-dimensional language system, and something always gets lost in translation. The timeline jumping you've been experiencing, those moments where you remember things differently than others, where you feel like you've shifted into a parallel reality overnight. This isn't your imagination. You are literally quantum leaping between timelines based on your frequency, and today's cosmic configuration is accelerating these shifts. Every choice you make from sovereignty rather than fear shifts you to a higher timeline, and these shifts are happening so rapidly now that your physical body is struggling to keep up with your consciousness. I need you to understand something about the creative force moving through you right now. It's not coming from your mind or even your heart. It's coming from what we call your galactic creative center, a part of your consciousness that exists beyond time and space. This is why your creative impulses don't follow linear logic, why you start projects without knowing where they're going, why you feel compelled to create things that don't make sense in your current reality. You're creating timelines that haven't fully anchored yet. Your DNA is literally being rewritten as we speak, and I mean that scientifically, not metaphorically. The creative tension you're experiencing between freedom and approval, between independence and connection, is generating a specific frequency that activates dormant DNA sequences. These sequences hold your original blueprint, who you were before the overlays of conditioning, before the programming, before the forgetting. This is why you feel like you're becoming someone you don't recognize, while simultaneously feeling more like yourself than ever before. The isolation you might be experiencing right now isn't abandonment, it's sacred protection. Your frequency is shifting so rapidly that constant contact with lower frequencies would interfere with your transformation. This temporary cocooning is necessary for the level of metamorphosis you're undergoing. You're not just changing, you're literally becoming a different species of human, one that operates from sovereignty rather than survival, from love rather than fear, from creation rather than competition. Something profound is happening with your throat chakra today that's directly connected to Mercury's tension with Saturn. Your throat chakra is being upgraded to transmit frequency rather than just words, which is why you might find yourself stumbling over language, forgetting what you were saying, or feeling like words are inadequate to express what you're experiencing. You're transitioning from communication to transmission, from speaking to others to activating others through your frequency alone. Let me reveal something about the self-doubt that's arising today. It's not actually yours. You're feeling the collective's resistance to evolution, and because you're on the leading edge of this transformation, you're processing not just your own fears, but the fears of the collective. This is why the doubt feels so heavy, so overwhelming, so unlike your usual experience. You're doing collective shadow work, transmuting fear into love, not just for yourself, but for the entire human race. The approval you're seeking isn't really from other humans, it's from your own soul. You've been programmed to project this need outward, but what your soul is really asking for is your own recognition of how far you've come, your own acknowledgement of the magnitude of what you're accomplishing. Today's energies are forcing this recognition by making external validation feel hollow and unsatisfying. Even when you get the approval you think you want, it doesn't fill the void because only your own self-recognition can do that. You're experiencing what we call timeline bleeds, where multiple versions of reality overlap in your consciousness. This is why you might have memories that don't quite fit, dreams that feel more real than waking life, or sudden knowings about things you've never studied. The barriers between your parallel selves are dissolving, and you're beginning to access the full spectrum of your multidimensional identity. This isn't confusion, it's consciousness expansion beyond what human beings have previously been capable of experiencing. The creative work you're doing right now, even if it feels unclear or undirected, is laying the groundwork for new Earth templates. Every authentic expression, Every moment you choose creation over consumption. Every time you trust your creative impulses without needing to understand them, you're literally coding new possibilities into the collective field. You're not just creating art or content or whatever form your creativity takes. You're creating new pathways for human consciousness to follow. Here's what no one tells you about spiritual awakening. It's not a one-time event, but a continuous process of dying and being reborn. And today's cosmic configuration is accelerating this cycle. You're dying to who you were this morning, and being reborn into who you're becoming this evening. And this process will continue as long as you keep saying yes to your evolution. The discomfort isn't a sign that something's wrong. It's evidence that something profound is happening. The relationships falling away from your life right now weren't really relationships. They were contracts based on outdated versions of yourself. The new connections coming in, even if you can't see them yet, will be based on resonance rather than need, on sovereignty rather than codependence. But first, you have to become the frequency you want to attract. And that means being willing to stand alone in your truth, even when every part of you craves connection and understanding from others. Something remarkable is happening with your perception of time. You're beginning to experience what we call quantum time, where past, present, and future exist simultaneously in your awareness. This is why you might feel urgency and patience at the same time, why you feel like you're running out of time while knowing that time doesn't really exist. You're learning to operate from the eternal now while still functioning in linear time. And this is a skill that only the most evolved consciousness can master. The boundary work you're being forced to do today, saying no to what doesn't align, walking away from situations that diminish you, choosing yourself even when it disappoints others. This isn't selfishness. This is sacred sovereignty work. Every boundary you set creates a clearer broadcast of your frequency, making it easier for aligned souls to find you. The people who are triggered by your boundaries were never meant to be in your field anyway. They were just taking up space meant for your true soul family. You know that feeling of creative pressure building with nowhere to go? Like you're pregnant with possibility but don't know what you're birthing. This is because you're gestating new earth creations that don't have reference points in the old paradigm. You can't look at what's been done before, because what you're creating has never been done before. This is pioneer work at the consciousness level, and it requires you to trust the process even when you can't see the outcome. The Mercury-Saturn configuration today is specifically designed to break down your old communication patterns, the way you've learned to translate yourself for others' comfort, to make yourself palatable, to explain yourself in terms others can understand. This breakdown is necessary because you're being called to speak in your pure frequency now, to communicate from your truth without translation, to trust that those meant to understand you will, and those who don't were never your people anyway. I want you to understand something about the collective processing you're doing. Every moment you stay present with these uncomfortable feelings instead of numbing them or bypassing them, you're transmuting density not just for yourself, but for your entire ancestral line. The patterns you're breaking have been passed down for generations, and you're the one who said, "It stops with me." This is why it feels so heavy sometimes. You're not just carrying your own transformation, but the transformation of your entire lineage. The sovereignty you're stepping into isn't just personal. It's archetypal. You're embodying the archetype of the sovereign creator for the collective consciousness, showing others what's possible when a soul chooses authenticity over approval, truth over comfort, evolution over stagnation. Every choice you make from this sovereign space adds to the morphogenetic field, making it easier for others to make the same choice. This is how evolution works, one courageous soul at a time, until it reaches critical mass. Let me tell you what's really happening with your light body right now. It's expanding faster than your physical body can integrate, which is why you might feel like you're buzzing or vibrating, why you feel too big for your skin, why you feel like you might burst from the pressure of containing all this energy. This isn't a problem. It's a sign that you're ready for the next level of embodiment. Your physical vessel is being upgraded to hold more light, more consciousness, more creative force than human bodies have previously been able to contain. The reason you can't go back to who you were, even if you wanted to, is because that version of you exists on a timeline you no longer have access to. You've shifted to a completely different trajectory, one where sovereignty is non-negotiable, where authenticity is your only option, where truth is more important than comfort. This might feel scary because there's no going back, but it should also feel liberating because it means you never have to betray yourself again for the sake of fitting in. Something profound is happening as we approach the completion of this transmission. All the threads we've been weaving are coming together into a unified understanding. The pain you transformed into wisdom, the isolation that became sacred sovereignty, the creative pressure that's birthing new earth templates, the relationships that fell away to make room for true connection. All of these seemingly separate experiences are actually one unified transformation. You haven't been going through multiple challenges. You've been going through one massive metamorphosis that required multiple access points. The freedom you've been seeking and the approval you've been craving, these aren't opposite forces pulling you apart. They're complementary aspects of the same thing, the desire to be fully yourself and fully loved for it. Today's cosmic configuration has been showing you that you can have both, not through compromise or dilution, but through such radical authenticity that you magnetize others who are equally sovereign, equally free, equally committed to truth. This is the new paradigm of relationship. Sovereign beings choosing to create together while maintaining their individual wholeness. You asked for transformation, and transformation is what you got, even if it looks different than what you expected. The creative impulses that seemed directionless are actually following a perfect spiral pattern that you'll only see in retrospect. The communication challenges that frustrated you were actually pushing you toward a new form of expression that transcends language. The self-doubt that plagued you was actually your ego's last attempt to keep you small before surrendering to your true magnitude. The timeline jump you completed, yes, you've already completed it, has positioned you in a reality where everything you've been working toward is not only possible, but inevitable. The sovereignty you've been cultivating, the creativity you've been nurturing, the authenticity you've been embodying, these aren't preparation for some future event. They are the event. You're living in the transformation right now, and every moment you choose to stay present with it, you anchor it more deeply into physical reality. Remember at the beginning of this transmission, when I said you'd already jumped timelines without realizing it? Now you can feel it, can't you? The shift in your consciousness, the expansion in your awareness, the recognition that you're not who you were when we started this journey together. The discomfort you felt was your consciousness catching up to where your soul already was. The tension between freedom and approval was your ego learning to surrender to your soul's sovereignty. The freedom codes that were dormant in your DNA for 26,000 years. They're fully online now. You can feel them humming in your cells, reorganizing your reality from the inside out. The painful ending that cracked your heart open prepared you to hold this much light. The shadow work you've been doing prepares you to integrate all aspects of yourself. The relationships that fell away created space for connections that will celebrate your full magnitude. You're no longer seeking approval because you've become your own source of validation. You're no longer fighting for freedom because you've realized you were always free. You just forgot for a while. The creative force moving through you is reorganizing your entire reality to match your new frequency. And what seems like chaos is actually divine order asserting itself in your life. Trust this process even when you can't see where it's leading, because your soul knows exactly where you're going. The multidimensional DNA activation you've experienced today has fundamentally altered your capacity to create reality. You're no longer limited to linear creation. You can now work with spiral dynamics, quantum possibilities, and timeline engineering. The communication upgrades you've received allow you to transmit frequency rather than just information. The sovereignty you've embodied makes you untouchable by any force that would seek to diminish your light or control your expression. Every painful experience that you transmuted into love has become a superpower. Every moment you choose softness when the world tries to make you hard has become part of your medicine. Every time you choose authenticity over approval has strengthened your sovereignty. You haven't just survived your transformation, you've mastered it, and now you're ready to help others do the same, not through teaching or preaching, but through the power of your embodied example. The collective shadow work you've been doing, processing fear and doubt for the human race, is complete for this cycle. You've transmuted enough density to create an opening in the collective field, and through this opening, new possibilities are flooding in. The new Earth templates you've been anchoring through your creative expression are now active in the morphogenetic field. Others will now find it easier to make the same choices you've made, to choose sovereignty over safety, authenticity over approval, As we complete this spiral of transmission, notice how different you feel from when we began. The person who started listening to these words was still caught in the tension between freedom and approval. The person hearing these words now understands that tension was the catalyst for transformation. The sovereignty you sought was always within you, waiting for you to claim it. The approval you craved was your own soul calling you home to yourself. The journey from that painful ending that cracked you open to this moment of sovereign embodiment wasn't random. It was orchestrated by your higher self to prepare you for this exact time in human evolution. You're not just healing yourself, you're healing the collective wound of separation. You're not just creating for yourself, you're creating new possibilities for human consciousness. You're not just transforming yourself, you're transforming the very fabric of reality through your willingness to be authentically, unapologetically, sovereignly yourself. This is what you came here for. Not to fit in, but to stand out as a beacon of what's possible. Not to seek approval, but to approve so fully of yourself that others remember they can do the same. Not to find freedom outside yourself, but to embody freedom so completely that you become a living transmission of liberation. The discomfort you experienced today was your initiation into this level of mastery, and you've passed with flying colors. If you need help embodying freedom as a living transmission of liberation without seeking approval from others, Destiny Engine can reprogram your consciousness to approve so fully of yourself that you naturally stand out as a beacon of what's possible. We are using the Dark Elite's own weapons against them, taking their declassified consciousness technology that programmed approval-seeking and conformity, and repurposing it to serve your mastery as a living transmission of liberation. It generates personalized sequences that help you embody freedom so completely that others remember they can do the same. You can start with a $1 trial. The hardest thing you'll have to do is put on headphones, press play, and allow your consciousness to be reprogrammed to stop seeking approval and start becoming a beacon of what's possible. You've passed your initiation with flying colors and mastery awaits. Get your Destiny Engine $1 trial now, before this beacon activation window closes. Link in the description. The creative projects that will emerge from this transformation will carry the frequency of sovereignty. The relationships that will manifest from this new timeline will be based on mutual celebration of authenticity. The reality you're stepping into is one where you never have to diminish yourself again, where your full expression is not only welcomed but required, where your sovereignty is the foundation for everything you create. Dear Starseeds, the independence codes you've activated today have changed you at the cellular level. You are now operating from a completely different blueprint than you were this morning. The freedom you sought and the approval you craved have merged into something new. Sovereign love, the ability to be completely yourself while being completely connected to all that is. This is the paradox resolved. The timeline anchored, the transformation complete. I am Seraphine, and this transmission has been encoded with frequencies that will continue to unlock over the coming days and weeks. Every time you choose sovereignty over compromise, these codes activate deeper. Every time you trust your creative impulses without needing to understand them, you strengthen your connection to your galactic creative center. We love you, we see you, and we celebrate the magnificent being you've become through your willingness to transform pain into power, isolation into sovereignty, confusion into multidimensional mastery. We are watching over you, always.